Mabuhay. Tell me about yourself. And suddenly you freeze. And that's when it quietly hits you. Studying in the Philippines was never just about learning English. It was about learning how to change yourself. In the days that followed, you still had to walk back into that same room. You still had to speak, still had to get things wrong, still had to hear yourself struggle, again and again. But then, almost without noticing, something began to shift. Not because you suddenly became better, but because you slowly got used to not being good yet. And at some point, you realize what's changing isn't just how you speak, it's how you face the things you once tried to avoid. And maybe that's why so many people only understand it after they leave the Philippines. The 7 skills they gained there were never written in any textbook. Number 1. You're forced to speak, even when you're not ready. Back home, you could prepare, think things through, write them down, even look up words if you needed to. But here, there's no buffer. The teacher asks, you answer. A classmate from another country starts a conversation. You respond. No one waits for you to get ready before things begin. There are one-on-one classes where it's just you and another person, face to face. And for 50 minutes, there's nowhere to hide. You say something wrong. They correct you. You stumble. They still wait for you to keep going. At first, it feels uncomfortable, like you're constantly being watched. And the natural reaction? Say less. Or just say something quickly to get it over with. But if you stay long enough, yet you start to notice something a bit unexpected. You don't improve when you speak perfectly. You improve when you allow yourself to be wrong. Again and again. There was someone I met, not particularly outstanding. In the first few weeks, they barely spoke to anyone. In class, their answers were short, almost hesitant. But about a month later, something shifted. They started speaking more, still making mistakes, still stumbling, but no longer stopping halfway. And that's when things began to change. Maybe you can see yourself in that feeling of knowing, but not being able to say it. And then slowly, saying a little, then a little more. And in the end, the real skill you take home isn't just speaking better English. It's the ability to open your mouth, even when you're not sure you're right. It sounds small. But later on, when you walk into an interview, step into a new environment, or face any situation where you're not fully ready, you'll start to feel just how much of a difference that makes. Number 2, you learn how to be alone, in a way no one really prepares you for. Being alone sounds simple when you hear it. Independence, growing up, taking care of yourself. But when you're actually in it, it doesn't feel the way you imagined. In the beginning, everything is new. Your schedule is full. You're surrounded by unfamiliar faces. You can talk, you can smile, make small conversations. But at night, when you return to your room, close the door, and everything goes quiet, the feeling shifts. There's no one familiar to tell random stories to. No one asking, how was your day? Just you, your phone, and a stretch of time you don't quite know what to do with. Some people try to fill it, scrolling, calling home, going out, just to avoid the silence. But there are moments you can't escape it. And that quiet sense of being slightly out of place, even when you're not alone in the world. I remember someone who, during the first week, called home almost every day. Not because anything big happened, just to hear a familiar voice. But over time, those calls became less frequent. Not because they missed home any less, but because they were slowly getting used to being with themselves. Have you ever felt that? That point where you no longer need someone to fill the silence, and it starts to feel normal. And the skill you bring back isn't just being independent in the textbook sense. It's the ability to be alone without feeling uneasy. It sounds small, but later, when you move to a new place, switch jobs, or enter a phase where no one quite understands what you're going through, you'll realize not panicking when you're alone is a quiet kind of strength. Number 3, you learn to adapt instead of complain. There's a phase where almost every day Something feels off. The food doesn't suit your taste. The weather shifts. Too hot, then sudden rain. Your schedule feels packed, and the teaching style isn't what you're used to. They're all small things, but when they pile up, it's enough to wear you down. The first reaction for many people is to compare. Back home, it wasn't like this. Maybe somewhere else would be better. Why is it like this here? And if you stay in that mindset, everything starts to feel heavier, not easier. But after a while, something begins to change. Not because things suddenly get better, but because you start seeing them differently. You eat things you didn't like before, simply because they're convenient. You get used to unexpected rain, and so you carry an umbrella without thinking. You understand how the classes work, so they no longer feel strange. I once talked to someone who, in their first week, complained about almost everything. Nothing felt right. But a few weeks later, we met again. Same place, same conditions. Yet the way they spoke had changed. Less complaining, more of a quiet, "That's just how it is here." Do you notice it? The world around you doesn't change that quickly. What changes faster is how you respond to it. And the skill you take home isn't about enduring more. It's the ability to adapt fast enough that you don't get stuck in your own discomfort. Later, when you step into a new job, a new city, or any unfamiliar environment, you'll start to see it clearly. The people who move forward aren't the ones with fewer problems, but the ones who don't take too long to accept, adjust, and keep going. Number 4. You become more comfortable talking to strangers. At first, you think the hardest part is speaking English, but then you realize speaking to who is actually harder. Because here, not everyone is like you. Koreans communicate differently. Japanese students tend to be more reserved. People from the Middle East can be more direct. Every group has its own way. There's no single safe approach that works for everyone. In the beginning, many people stay within what feels familiar. Spending time with others from the same country, it's easier. Less thinking, less pressure, and honestly, that's completely normal. But if you stay in that circle too long, you start to notice your experience doesn't feel that different from back home. Then at some point, you're pushed out of it. A shared meal, a school activity, or simply sitting at a table with people you don't know. You don't know how to start, what to ask, so it's not awkward, what to say so you don't feel out of place. I once saw someone join a gathering like that for the first time and barely say a word. Mostly just listening. But the next few times, they started adding a sentence here and there, then another. Not always smooth, but clearly, they were no longer standing outside. Can you remember moments like that, when you weren't fully confident, but you chose to join anyway? And the skill you take home isn't perfect communication. It's the courage to start a conversation, even when you're not sure where it will go. Later, in work and in life, you'll find yourself in many situations just like that. Conversations with no script, no clear direction. And in those moments, the ability to step in, instead of staying on the sidelines, quietly becomes an advantage. Number 5. You begin to understand discipline in a way that feels exhausting. Before coming here, a lot of people think they'll feel more motivated to study, a new environment, fewer distractions, a chance to focus on self-growth. It all sounds right. But in reality, what you face isn't always motivation. It's a schedule that doesn't really allow you to be lazy. Your day can start early in the morning, moving from one class to another. One-on-one, then group, then self-study. Repeat. Day after day. There are days when you feel no interest at all, but you still have to sit down, still have to speak, still have to do the work. At first, you push through because everything feels new. Then comes a phase where your energy drops. You're tired, but you can't really stop. And this is where many people start to fall off. Doing less, or just doing things halfway. But if you get past that phase, you begin to see something clearly. Discipline isn't about having motivation. It's about continuing, even when the motivation is gone. I've seen people who started strong, full of energy, joining every activity in the first week, but a few weeks later, they slowly disappeared from self-study sessions. And then there are others, not very noticeable at the beginning, just steady, quiet, showing up every day without much emotion, but still doing the work. And they're the ones who improve the most. Does that feel familiar? That sense of not always wanting to do something, but knowing that if you don't, you'll fall behind. And the skill you take home isn't just working hard when you feel inspired, it's the ability to keep a steady rhythm, even when you don't enjoy it. Later, but when you start working, you'll realize many things aren't exciting, but still need to be done well. And that's when this kind of Philippines-style discipline quietly starts to matter. Number 6. You begin to see the world differently. Before coming here, many people carry a clear way of thinking. This country is better, that one is more developed, this place is more livable than another. Everything gets ranked, better or worse, almost instantly. But after spending some time in the Philippines, you start to notice things aren't that easy to measure anymore. You're in a place that isn't particularly wealthy. The facilities aren't always perfect. And yet the people feel lighter. They talk more, laugh more. It's easy to start a conversation. Life doesn't feel too rushed or too tense. There are things that from the outside might look like something is missing. But when you're actually living in it, it doesn't quite feel like a lack the way you expected. And then you begin to look back at other places, even where you came from, and realize each one carries its own way of living. It's no longer just about which place is better. It becomes which place fits me better. I once heard someone say, after finishing their time there, before, I thought I had to go somewhere highly developed. But now, I think I just need a place where I can live the way I want. It sounds simple, but to truly think that way, you usually have to go through something first. Do you feel that shift? When you stop measuring everything with just one scale, and the skill you bring home isn't just knowing more about the world, it's the ability to see things from more than one angle, to judge less, and to become clearer about what actually matters to you. Later, when you're faced with bigger choices, where to live, or what to do, how to build your life, you won't just chase what seems best on paper, you'll start choosing what quietly feels right for you. Number 7. You realize growth isn't as beautiful as you once imagined. Before coming here, many people picture a very clear version of themselves after finishing the program. More confident, more fluent, more knowledgeable, like a clean, steady, upward line. But once you're in it, you start to see it doesn't really work that way. There are days when you feel real progress. You speak better. You respond faster. But there are also days when you feel like you've gone backward. You stumble. You don't understand what others are saying. It feels like you haven't improved much at all. It goes up and down, not stable, and at times, quite frustrating. There are moments when you start questioning yourself. Am I actually suited for this? Or maybe I'm not improving the way I thought. Those thoughts aren't always loud. But they're enough to slow you down. I've seen someone who only started to feel confident near the very end of the course, while before that, they almost always felt like they were falling behind. And if you only looked at certain moments, you'd think they didn't improve much. But if you look at the whole journey, it tells a different story. Does that feel familiar? That sense of things being unclear, uncertain, not as neat as you expected. And the skill you take home isn't a more perfect version of yourself. It's the acceptance that growth is messy, non-linear, and sometimes uncomfortable. But because you've gone through it, you begin to understand, continuing, even when you don't see immediate results, is what creates real, lasting change. And maybe that's the most important part, not how fast you change, but that you don't stop halfway. And when you look back on that entire journey, maybe you won't see a dramatic transformation, but you'll know something has shifted in the way you speak, the way you endure, the way you step into things you once avoided. It's not loud, not perfect, but it's real. And maybe only those who've been through it truly understand that feeling. Thank you for staying until the end.